If you don't know how to run Facebook ads, or you're having trouble running your current Facebook ads for your own business or for a company, this is a perfect video to watch. I'm a Silicon Valley marketer who has managed more than $50 million in digital marketing spend for some of the biggest startup names that you know of. Today, I'm going to be covering how to run Facebook ads, the strategy behind Facebook ads, how to build our audiences, how to build our targeting for our business outcomes. This is the second part to our Facebook ads tutorial series, and we're going to have at least 2 more videos after this, so make sure you stay tuned. So if you're ready to learn some Facebook, let's go. All right, so we have a blank sheet of paper here, similar to how we started with Google Ads. Go check that tutorial out if you're interested. And we need to start by building our account plan, or the areas that we want to attack. Now, as you may or may not know, I run a website called The Gift Yak, which is a small affiliate website. So I write articles, and then people click those articles, and then they go to Amazon, and then they potentially buy. And so that is my user flow. If you are working at a product or a software company, you probably have a much more intricate user flow, or maybe you're starting your own business and it's relatively simple. Either way, we're going to tackle both of those in this video. I'm going to show you how I would do it for my business, but then I'm also going to show you how I would do it for a larger e-commerce business as well. All right, let's start with our account plan here. And what do we need to think about for our account plan? Well, first we need to think about what type of audiences that we're going to be running ads for. And again, this is going to be very much business dependent, and it's going to very much be budget dependent as well. And I'll explain that in a little bit. And then probably the third biggest piece to this is going to be creative, which we're actually going to cover in the next video. So make sure you watch after this video. So when I think about audiences, the first thing I want to think about for at least my own website is I have many different articles, and each of these articles are effectively standalone products for me, because somebody who clicks on a 6th anniversary article, that's what this is probably looking just to get a 6th anniversary gift. And so the reality is I need to build an audience structure that is focused on a per article basis. And we'll get into how you would do it for a different type of business shortly. So I have a set of Valentine articles that I've built first on my website because I wanted to go after the Valentine holiday market. And we're getting close now. So I got about a week left to develop this account plan, build it out within Facebook, and create the advertisements for it. So we got plenty of time. And I have to decide which of these articles I think is going to resonate well within the Facebook and Instagram communities. Well, I already know that I want to go after moms. This would be gifts for moms. And so we need to think about, okay, who's the audience for that, right? Let's look at some audiences here. Then we have gifts for dad from daughter. So we're going to take this one as well. Gifts for daughter. So gifts for mom, that's another one. We got one for toddler classmates. We're going to skip on this just with everything going on with COVID and kids not generally being in school. This is probably better served for maybe next Valentine's Day. Because remember, you only have a finite budget. My budget is probably smaller than yours if you're working at a company. So think about that as like your dry powder. You don't want to put dry powder into an audience or a landing page or a product or a service that you don't think is going to return a good ROI or return on investment, at least out of the gate. We can test it later on. So this one is for sisters. So we will also think about having a sisters. We also have Star Wars Valentine's Day gifts. I think this would be great for Facebook. Those are our Valentine's buckets. So we got gifts for moms, gifts for dads. We have gifts for daughters, gifts for sisters, and then miscellaneous. The next step I would do in my account planning is I would start thinking about the actual Facebook audiences. We're going to go into Facebook and we're going to start seeing who we could actually target within Facebook. But before we do that, let me take a step back for anybody who doesn't use Facebook ads, or maybe who isn't as familiar with Facebook ads. So there are different ways to target users on Facebook. Remember, Facebook has 1 billion plus users across Facebook properties, Instagram properties, WhatsApp properties. And they also work with third-party websites to put ads there as well. So there are a lot of ways that you can target a user, and there are a lot of users to target. Facebook has what's called a knowledge graph, and they know so much about us as users, you would not believe it. They have the strongest knowledge graph in the world, without a doubt. And they're able to stitch together what websites you go to, what you're interested in, because they have a presence on so many websites throughout the internet. If you go to any website that has a Facebook like button or a Facebook login button or a Facebook comments button, all of those are widgets that allow Facebook to know if there's a logged in Facebook user on that page. And what do? Well, they store that data and then they say, okay, Matt has been to ESPN.com. Now Matt is on fanatics.com. He was looking at a Chicago Bulls article on ESPN. Now he's on the Chicago Bulls merchandise page on Fanatics. And we think he's in market for sports memorabilia or sports gear. They would probably be right. And they have algorithms that run in the background. And in real time, they can serve me an ad and it can be based off of the targeting that we choose as advertisers. So if we decided, hey, we want to get in front of sports, people who are in markets for sports goods, they would serve me an ad and they would be right to do so. There's a high likelihood that I would convert. And so with all of that data and information, you have different ways to target users. So one of those is just called interests. We'll likely be starting with interests as our targeting because we don't have a lot of user data. And interests are pretty broad-based interests, like Valentine's Day is probably an interest. Gifts are probably an interest, right? They don't say that much about the user, but they give you a way to target a smaller population that is more likely to convert for whatever your product, good, or service is. You can also target based on demographics, depending on your niche. Some niches like finance and credit, you can't do that. Demographics allow us to say, well, we don't want to run this ad for one gender specifically because that gender can't use it. So you can do some limiting factors based on gender or age. Obviously, location. We'll be targeting the United States. Then you get into some stuff called lookalike audiences. These have very much been the biggest invention that came out of Facebook in terms of targeting and the most lauded after. Lookalike audiences, still to this day, are the cream of the crop when it comes to targeting on Facebook. Assume you have a population of users that go on your website. Let's say over the last 30 days, you've had 10,000 users that have visited your website. Each of those users have their own markers, their own differences, their own unique websites they visit, their own interests. But Facebook's algorithm knows the commonalities between all of those 10,000 users. And what you can tell Facebook to do, you can say, hey, Facebook, take these 10,000 users that have visited my site and go find me 2 million new users that I can run advertisements to. You can see how that can be pretty powerful as long as you have a good starting base for what that seed audience is. So where do the powerful audiences come from here? Well, past purchasers, signups, leads, those types of markers from a conversion standpoint are true business outcomes. They lead to revenue, or they directly are revenue if it's a purchase. And so by and large, you want to start with lookalikes of those events. And I would say you need a minimum of about 5,000 users to build that seed audience, right? You got to give Facebook enough data that they can find those commonalities. And lookalikes will probably be your strongest audience. Another audience that you should think about, you can take these same audiences here, you can remarket to past purchasers, to signups, to leads, etc. So that is a way that you can target users. Those aren't going to bring you new users though. And then finally, you can do what's called broad targeting. All right, this has become much more famous over the last 12 months as Facebook's algorithms have gotten stronger in terms of understanding populations. And what broad targeting is essentially when you start a campaign or when you start an ad set, you don't put any interests. You might put very few demographics. You wouldn't have any lookalike audience targeting. You would just leave it broad. All right, you'd probably have a location only. And then what Facebook will do is they've gotten good at identifying large populations. Think about it like concentric circles. So you have one big circle. Well, Facebook knows if I target this circle within it, that would be the best population to go after. So they have gotten better here. We'll test some broad. I'm just not going to have big budgets. And so I will likely start with some interest targeting. Let's go ahead and dive into Facebook itself and try and find some audiences that we can use here. All right, so let's just create a dummy campaign here. We're going to be driving traffic. You might be driving conversion events, and we'll talk about if you are driving like a conversion event, what you should be doing in terms of budget. All right, we're going to name this. Yeah, for now, I'll just call it that. So I know it's a prospecting campaign. I know the theme is going to be around Valentine's Day. Those are my articles. And then I'm only going to be targeting the US for right now. All right, so special ad categories. We've talked about this in the first Facebook tutorial. You only need to include that if you are running ads in credit, employment, housing, social issues, elections, or politics. If you are, you're going to have the same ability to advertise. Your ads are going to get scrutinized, and your audiences will not include some data. They'll be less powerful audiences, but you can still run ads. But make sure you select that if you are. All right, we're going to run a traffic campaign, and we're going to turn on campaign budget optimization. This will basically allow Facebook to optimize our ad sets and spend the most efficient way possible. So I would recommend having this on. It was supposed to be a permanent feature as of 2020, but Facebook pushed that back. I would expect at some point in the future, this won't even be toggleable. You'll have to have it on. So you can set your daily budget. We'll just put 10 for now. I recommend having a lowest cost bid strategy. What this says is Facebook will spend all $10 every day, and they will try to achieve the lowest cost for whatever your event is. Since we're driving traffic, it's going to be the lowest cost for somebody to land on our website. If you're doing a conversion campaign and you are saying, hey, I want people to sign up on my website, well, Facebook would do the lowest cost to achieve a sign up on your website. All right, so the ad set level, I'm thinking I'll probably do the first ad set based on these pages specifically. So this would be a mom ad set. And then if you just scroll down, you'll get into defining your audience. We were talking about different ways that we can target users. Well, this is where you do it at the ad set level. So we know we want to keep our location as is. We're also probably just going to keep our age as is, because technically any age can buy a gift for their mom. And it should be considered here, the lower this number goes, this is your potential reach, the more expensive it is to deliver your advertisement. So you are priced on a cost per 1,000 impressions. And I would say by and large, here's where you want to be. You want this number, unless you're running broad, to be somewhere between 2 and 10 million users. This will keep your costs low on delivery, and you'll be targeted towards users that you'll have good performance. Genders, it doesn't matter. Boy or girl could buy a gift for their mom. So we're going to leave that. And then custom audiences you can go into. This is if you have a lookalike set up. As soon as I get some really good data, I'm going to build a lookalike audience and I'm going to start targeting. So this is where you're able to layer in some other targeting based off of your needs. So let's think about the audiences that we need to reach here. This is one of the articles. We're trying to find people who have moms and are interested in Valentine's Day. So let's see if we can find anything about mom. So this is an interest in mom. It doesn't mean that they necessarily have a mom. They could be a mom. So let's try mom, and then we'll do suggestions. So if you put one in here and you do suggestions, you'll get some other options here. All right, so mom is probably not it. What about kid? Let's check some suggestions. So none of those. Those were all for like little kids. I'm wondering if we choose something like family. What if we choose family? What else is there? So we can hit this browse button as well. We can go through these individually. So demographics. Okay, so none of those interests are really related to being a kid or having a mom. And now you get down to the behaviors. These behaviors are really strong because this will include intent. All right, so unfortunately, no pre-populated items in there. I think family could potentially get us there. So what if we narrow the audience and add, they must also be interested in Valentine's Day. So now we're down to about 5,800. So I actually don't mind that. The only other thing I would see if we can narrow it even more is if we can put gift. All right, so that's actually pretty good. We lost about 10% of that audience. We're now down to 5.3 million. And I like this. So my interests here are going to be family and Valentine's Day and gift. So what does this mean? Well, it means they have to be a part of the family audience and a part of the Valentine's Day audience and a part of the gift audience. And you could theoretically, by the way, you could narrow it even further, and we could do that engaged shopper, which is somebody who clicks on the buy now button. And now we're down to 3 million. We could try that. So this is 3 million. So I would keep track of how big your audience is. So I would continue going down this and doing this for all of these. The one thing I would want to say and leave you with on budgeting. Budgets are important when it comes to Facebook. Here's how you should think about it. You need to have a budget big enough for 7 conversions per day. So what does that mean? Well, if you are targeting a conversion event and your goal CPA or cost per conversion is $20, your daily budget should be equal to 7 times 20. That will give Facebook enough budget to hit the 7 conversions per day goal. Think about what event you're targeting. If you're targeting a click, let's say, well, that's really high up in the funnel and those are relatively cheap, so you can have smaller budgets. If you're targeting something way down in the funnel, like somebody buying a $2,000 computer, well, it's gonna be more expensive to acquire somebody like that. And you're gonna have less conversion volume. And so you're gonna need bigger budgets to support the cost per acquisition needs there. These are the constraints I would follow for how you set your budget. All right, let's take a look at another business. So let's just go back to Shutterfly. Shutterfly is a humongous e-commerce business, and they probably run a ton of advertisements on Facebook. Why? Well, this type of product is very visual. A lot of what they sell are printed photo books, wall art, holiday cards for the family. And there's a lot of imagery on that. Easier to market that to a Facebook audience. They probably have at least dozens of campaigns that are running on Facebook because they have so many different products that they could offer, and they have so many different holidays that they need to target, etc. And so if we were trying to advertise this product on Facebook, well, how would we do it? Well, we'll talk in the next video about how we would create the actual asset, the advertisement. And so today we just need to think about how we would target somebody who is interested in a travel photo book. That's the page we would target. All right, who is interested in a travel photo book? Go back to our friends at Facebook here. So what if we type in travel? So this seems like a good start. So not only are they people interested in traveling, but they're actually frequent travelers. So this could be a potential audience that we target, since people who are likely to travel more probably have more memories that they want to capture in a product like a photo book. Same with international travelers. This is probably a better audience to target. It's going to be a smaller audience, but I would assume more often people want travel photo books for big family vacations, big international trips, rather than small weekend trips. So I think the top 2 here are really strong. Returned from travel is actually another interesting piece because you have the recency effect. Then you get into some interesting pieces here where it's no longer about the frequency of your travel, but what type of travel you've done. So you can imagine targeting people who are interested in adventure travel and showing them a different type of photo book. I mean, realistically, there's a lot of different travel pieces here. So let's type in frequent travelers. Let's say that's the one we wanted to go with. That's got 110 million people, so that's huge. It's probably too big. Let's click this suggestions button. What about vacations? That's a better targeting layer than travelers. Tourism probably falls into that same aspect. So this frequent international travelers is pretty good, right? It's about 33 million. The other thing I might think about if I was Shutterfly, and they have this data and I don't, is the age of the user that generally purchases photo books. I'm guessing that it skews older. And so you could potentially do some limiting factors based on age. So if I were them, I might start with something like international traveler and parents. It still includes some business travelers. There's no doubt about it. You're going to get people who are going away for work, but I think you're more apt to get a bigger audience size here and try and broaden it than you are to shrink the audience down to like 2 million. That should set you up pretty well in terms of the targeting for your type of business. Take some of those principles, right, and apply them to whatever products, services, or business outcomes that you're looking to accomplish. And the targeting and account planning phase are really only half of the game. It's great that you're able to narrow the audience down on Facebook and find some really potentially valuable audiences for your network. But Facebook is good at taking populations and finding the users within them that will convert. And so we've covered 50% of it, which is targeting and how to set up Facebook ads and how to build out a campaign and ad set. But the other 50% is how you actually develop a creative for Facebook, how you make the Facebook ad itself. That is equally, if not more important than the targeting. So watch the next video if you're interested in figuring out how to hack that.